Imagine for a moment, not just one big language model syncing on its own, but think about like a whole team of experts, specialists, all working together inside that one model.
Hmm.
And get this, they're not, taking turns politely. They're adapting instantly. Like seeing what others are doing mid-thought, mid-sentence even.
It's a really mind-bending idea, isn't it? And yeah, that's exactly what we're getting into today. We're doing a deep dive into groupthink.
Hmm.
It's this new paradigm for how LLMs can reason together.
Right. You sent over that paper from MediaTek Research Group Think, multiple concurrent reasoning agents collaborating at token-level granularity. Sounds dense, but the core idea seems powerful.
It really is, and we're going to unpack it for you.
Because, these multi-agent systems we hear about, they sound great in theory, but often they just seem slow.
Exactly. That's the problem they're tackling.
Yeah.
Current approaches are often sequential, turn-based.
It means waiting around, latency.
Yeah, latency, redundancy, like different agents accidentally doing the same bit of work.
Or even contradicting each other sometimes, right? Just messy.
Totally inefficient. It's like a meeting where everyone waits for Bob to finish his point before Jane can even start hers, and then Jane just repeats half of what Bob said.
Ah, right. Been in those meetings.
So, yeah, our mission today is to show you how groupthink might be a shortcut, a way to get more efficient, higher quality reasoning out of these models. And there's some really surprising things about how these LLMs seem to already have some inherent knack for this. We'll get into what that means for the future.
Okay, cool. So we know the problem, slow, redundant collaboration. Let's dig into the solution. What is groupthink, fundamentally?
Okay. So the big idea, the breakthrough, is that groupthink lets a single LLM act like it's multiple thinkers, multiple reasoning agents, all working concurrently. Think of it like a super fast brainstorming session, but it's all happening, internally within the one model.
Right, not like linking separate chatbots together. It's internal. And you mentioned this term token-level collaboration. That sounds like the secret sauce. You said it's different from just sending messages back and forth.
Yeah, that's where it gets really interesting. So instead of Agent A finishing a thought and sending it to Agent B in groupthink, all the agents or thinkers can see each other's work as it's being generated, like token by token.
Token by token. So literally, as one part of the model is outputting a word, another part sees it instantly.
Precisely. So one reasoning thread, one thinker might be starting down a path. But if it sees another thinker is already covering that ground, or maybe has a better angle,
It just stops or changes direction.
it can shift its generation, mid-sentence sometimes. It avoids duplication almost instantly. Think of maybe people working on a whiteboard together. One person starts sketching an idea, someone else immediately adds to it, another refines it, all overlapping in real time. No one waits.
Okay, that clicks. That fine-grained, almost subconscious coordination.
That's the key. It avoids wasting effort.
So obviously that tackles the speed, the latency problem we talked about, less waiting, less duplication. But does it actually make the final answer better? Is the quality higher, or is it just faster?
That's a great question. And the research suggests, yes, absolutely. It's not just faster, the quality improves too. By cutting out the redundant work and allowing for that immediate synergistic adaptation, you tend to get a more coherent, comprehensive, and often more accurate final output.
Synergy inside the machine.
Kind of, yeah. It achieves significantly lower latency and higher quality compared to the old sequential ways.
Okay, so this brings a practical point. Why is this particularly interesting for, me? For the average person maybe running an LLM on their laptop or phone?
Right, that's super relevant. Groupthink is actually really efficient for what we call edge inference.
Running it locally, not in the cloud.
Exactly. On your phone, your laptop. The thing is, the GPUs in those devices, they're often powerful, but when you run a single LLM query, you're often not even using all that power. The GPU is kind of idling partially.
Ah, okay. So it's like having a V8 engine, but only driving in first gear.
Pretty much. Groupthink can put that wasted capacity to work. By running multiple reasoning threads in parallel on that same GPU, it uses the hardware more effectively.
So it doesn't necessarily slow down my phone more.
Potentially not. It makes local LLMs more feasible, and the quality of the reasoning you get locally could be much higher because it's doing this collaborative thinking. Imagine your personal AI having a whole team meeting internally before giving you an answer.
That's a cool idea. Okay, so how does it work? Behind the scenes, what's the mechanism?
Well, at a high level, it allows the LLM to generate multiple chains of thought simultaneously. Those step-by-step reasoning processes models sometimes show.
Right.
Groupthink lets it produce several of those in parallel. And crucially, each chain, each agent's thinking, dynamically adapts based on what the others are generating at the same time.
And the paper mentioned two main ways they implemented this, one for local devices, one maybe more for data centers.
That's right. For local devices, the idea is simple parallelism. Multiple agents run side by side. This creates a bigger workload, a larger batch for the GPU, which, as we said, uses that idle capacity.
So no extra time cost, ideally.
Correct. The clever bit is a small tweak to the attention mechanism, the part of the LLM that decides what previous information is relevant. They modify it so each agent can attend to, or see, the tokens being generated by all the other agents, not just its own past work.
Okay, shared attention. And for data centers, is it different there?
Yeah, for data centers, they have an even slicker method that can work even with just one processing thread handling multiple agents. They do something called interleaving. Imagine the LLM's working memory, the KV cache.
Where it stores what it's processed so far.
Exactly. Instead of each agent having its own separate space, they cleverly weave the tokens from all the agents together into the same sequence in that shared memory.
Whoa, how does that work?
They use some tricks with positional information, basically telling the model that even though token X from agent 1 and token Y from agent 2 are next to each other physically in memory, they belong to different reasoning threads happening concurrently. This means every new token being generated can still attend to all the relevant previous tokens from all agents, achieving that collaboration without needing separate parallel hardware streams for each agent.
That sounds efficient.
Very. And it means you can mix regular LLM requests and these groupthink requests in the same processing batch in a data center. No major architectural changes needed for the base LLM.
That is clever. But okay, the implementation is smart. What actually happened when they tried this? You hinted that maybe existing models could already do this.
This is probably the most surprising finding for me. They tested groupthink on standard open source LLMs, models that were not specifically trained for this kind of multi-agent collaboration.
Just off-the-shelf models.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
And the results were, well, really promising. These models showed what the researchers called emergent support for the groupthink paradigm.
Emergent, meaning it just happened. They didn't teach it.
Exactly. It suggests there's some kind of inherent capability, maybe a latent collaborative potential, already present in these large models. It was just waiting for a structure like groupthink to unlock it.
Wow. Okay. So how did they test this? What kinds of problems did they throw at it?
They used three main categories to show the benefits. First was enumeration.
Like list stuff.
Yeah. Imagine asking it to list, say, 100 male names. A single agent would just start listing, maybe repeat itself, maybe run out of steam. With groupthink, the different thinkers spontaneously divvied up the work. One might start on English names, another might see that and pivot to Greek names, another to Asian names, and so on.
Ah, so they naturally partition the task based on categories.
Seems like it. They avoided stepping on each other's toes, reduced duplication, and finished the list much faster. And the more thinkers they used, the quicker it got done. Clear efficiency win.
That's pretty smart self-organization. What about something more complex, like programming?
Right, coding. Say you need a program with several distinct functions. The groupthink models showed, and I'm quoting here, high alertness in avoiding duplication. If one thinker started writing, say, the data loading function,
Others would see that instantly, token by token.
and pivot to working on maybe the main processing logic or the output function, a part that wasn't being worked on yet.
So they naturally tackled different parts of the problem in parallel.
Exactly. This led to much higher success rates in completing the whole coding task compared to a single agent trying to do everything sequentially.
I can see how that would speed things up massively. Okay, and the third category, divide and conquer.
Yeah, this was for more abstract problems, like finding the shortest path in a complex network or graph. Again, groupthink showed significant speedups. Just having 4 thinkers collaborating internally, roughly half the time it took compared to one thinker doing it alone.
Half the time with just 4 internal agents. That's substantial.
It really highlights the power of this internal parallelism for certain kinds of reasoning.
So if we zoom out a bit, how does this compare to just, running 4 separate copies of the LLM on the same problem and picking the best answer or trying to combine them somehow, that independent sampling idea?
Right, that's a key comparison. Groupthink seems to outperform that independent approach, especially as problems get bigger or you use more agents. There is a tiny initial overhead for groupthink's internal coordination, that shared attention mechanism.
Makes sense.
But its efficiency scales much better. Why? Because those independent models, they're all trying to solve the whole problem from scratch. They generate a lot of redundant work.
Right, 4 models listing names would all probably start with John and James.
Exactly. Groupthink, because of that constant token-level awareness, avoids that massive duplication. Its collaborative nature really pays off as the complexity increases.
This really reframes how we should think about these models. You said it's less like one mind and more like a collective, a society.
That's the conceptual leap the paper suggests, yeah.
Yeah.
What if we stop seeing an LLM as just a single, albeit very smart entity? What if we think of it as a potential society of cognitive specialists? The paper even throws out ideas like having internal agents specialized as goal setters, planners, executors, verifiers.
Wow, like roles within an organization, but inside the AI.
Exactly. All collaborating in real time, dynamically. It's a shift from just one genius to a highly coordinated team.
So the future work isn't just about making them faster at avoiding duplication, it's about more sophisticated teamwork.
Precisely. The researchers talk about aiming for things like agents developing communication strategies, maybe even tacit ones, dynamic role specialization, an agent becoming the planner for this specific task, maybe even seeing game theory type optimal behaviors emerge within the collective. How do they best cooperate or even compete internally to solve the user's overall goal?
That sounds incredibly complex, stuff you probably can't just program in with simple rules.
Unlikely. And that's why they say the key to really unlocking this isn't just clever algorithms, but also creating new data sets. Data sets specifically designed to train models in these complex, collaborative behaviors.
Train the internal society how to work together effectively.
You got it. That could really push the boundaries.
Okay, so let's recap. We've explored groupthink, this idea of a single LLM acting like a team of thinkers inside itself. They collaborate at the token level, adapting instantly, which makes them faster and, surprisingly, often produces better quality results.
Right. Big potential for efficiency, especially on our own devices,
Yeah.
using that idle GPU power.
And the really wild part is that current models seem to have some latent ability for this already, even without specific training.
Yeah, that emerging capability is fascinating. Just needs the right framework and maybe the right training data to blossom.
So for our final thought today, you've painted this picture of an LLM not just as one brilliant mind, but maybe as an entire, perfectly synchronized organization. What's the most profound or maybe even slightly scary complex problem you could imagine a true society of LLM minds tackling for us in the future? Something beyond what even today's best single models could touch.
That's a big question to leave people with. Imagine asking it to not just draft a policy, but to internally simulate the economic, social, and environmental impacts from dozens of stakeholder perspectives simultaneously, constantly refining the policy based on that internal debate, all before it even gives you the first draft. What could that level of internal multifaceted reasoning achieve?